As most Commanders fans know, the Washington Commanders are a rebuilding franchise. But today, I'm going to get aggressive. I've got some players that the Washington Commanders can target in the trade market right now to make this team better and give Jayden Daniels and Dan Quinn some help here in this new era of Washington Commanders football. Welcome into the Commanders Report. I am your host, Jack Sperry. Today, I got 6 aggressive trade targets for your Washington Commanders to cover on today's show. But before we get into it, make sure you click that thumbs up icon if you are absolutely stoked for the start of the Dan Quinn and Jayden Daniels era here in Washington. I know I am. If you are as well and you're hopeful for the future of this football team, make sure you click that thumbs up icon to start today's show. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer here, guys, okay? I am not predicting that the Washington Commanders make any of these moves. There's some names on here that, maybe it's a little bit unrealistic, but this is an aggressive trade targets video, okay? So we're going to be going out, we're going to be adding big name players, and I'm simply presenting options that are currently or have been talked about on the trade market to this point. So don't get in the comments section and say, oh, there's no way this is going to happen. Why are you even talking about this? Today, we're talking aggressive trade targets, so just know that that's what we're going to be talking about. And also, keep in mind here, as a rebuilding franchise here, Washington, I would say it's a little bit rare for rebuilding teams, especially after the NFL draft, to get this aggressive and make a trade for a big-name player. Now, it's happened before, crazier things that have happened, so we're going to talk about it on the show. You never know what they're going to do, but just keep in mind here, the Commanders are rebuilding, and they may be looking to keep their cap space, keep their draft assets, all these different things. So, if they want to get aggressive, all right, if Adam Peters is like, you know what, I'm going to add a piece to really make this offense go with Jayden Daniels in year one, I think they'd go out and get another wide receiver to pair with Terry McLaurin, who is a legit number one receiver, in my opinion. But if you get another guy to put in this offense here, along with Jahan Dotson, Luke McCaffrey, all these guys they have in the wide receiver room, I think that this offense with Cliff Kingsbury calling the plays and Jayden Daniels throwing the rock can be even more dangerous than it potentially could be heading into the 2024 season. And I'm very excited to see what can get done here. So let's toss out some aggressive names here. How about Brandon Aiyuk? He was a former teammate of Jayden Daniels back at Arizona State, which is crazy because Aiyuk's been in the league for a little while now. He's about to get paid his second contract in the league. That's how long Jayden Daniels was in college for, by the way. But Aiyuk is somebody that trains with JD in the offseason. They actually go up on social media and they host like their own little conversations on there from time to time as well. So they're really good friends. And then also, Aiyuk's a fantastic player, guys. He's a second-team All-Pro wide receiver from last season. He was really the main engine of the San Francisco 49ers passing game last year with Brock Purdy throwing him the football. And the reason why that is because he's one of the best route runners in the sport today, man. He's super crisp. He can stop on a dime. He can get going again super quickly. The acceleration, the speed, and then the intelligence as a route runner is really something to behold. But the San Francisco 49ers reportedly are asking for really astronomical prices. They're asking for the A.J. Brown type of package here. The Eagles ended up sending a first-round pick and a third-round pick in exchange for A.J. Brown a couple years back. That's going to be the baseline of any deal for Brandon Aiyuk. Now, John Lynch, the San Francisco 49ers GM, has said, we are not getting rid of Brandon Aiyuk at this point in the offseason. And he might be 100% correct on that, and he might just be completely stonewalled saying, we're not trading Brandon Aiyuk. But if there's a possibility that you can get him on your roster, you already have your quarterback situation figured out. It's not like you're going to be spending your first-round pick on a quarterback next year. If you really want to solidify the wide receiver room for Jayden Daniels as he enters his first year and Brandon Aiyuk is available, this is something for Adam Peters to consider. Now, another thing that you have to take into account here is that if you trade for Brandon, not only are you giving up a lot of really high-end draft capital, but you're also going to have to give him a new contract, which is going to get close to $30 million per season after this year. So for a team that's trying to rebuild, does it really make sense to be paying a wide receiver $30 million when you already have a rather large wide receiver contract with Terry McLaurin? I think you can certainly say it doesn't make sense because of that, but just keep that in mind if you want to go out and get Brandon Aiyuk. And the reasons why I think that a trade for Aiyuk is definitely unlikely at this point for the Washington Commanders. Number one, the price tag is going to be more than I think what Washington's going to want to pay. This is a rebuilding team. You don't trade away first-round picks if you're rebuilding. Plain and simply, that's an easy rule to follow for this football team. Then number two, San Francisco has said they're not looking to trade Brandon this offseason, all right? They're trying to get him locked up to a long-term contract. I would say Deebo Samuel is probably the more likely guy that could get dealt, even though the Niners have also said he's not on the market either. So let me know down there in the comments section if this was the price tag to go out and get Brandon Aiyuk to pair with his former college teammate and one of his best friends, Jayden Daniels, here on the Commanders. Would you accept? Type A for accept, type D for decline. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show, so YouTube's going to throw an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. Then some other wide receiver options on the trade market to consider if you want to add a wide receiver. DK Metcalf from the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle is definitely, let's put it this way, they're up against the cap. Metcalf has a big contract. Maybe they don't want to give him another big contract and they want to unload him to save some cap space. That's certainly a possibility. Courtland Sutton from the Denver Broncos. He doesn't like his contract situation with Denver. They after releasing Russell Wilson, they're in quite a bit of in cap straits right now. So they need some more cap room. Courtland Sutton, getting rid of him could alleviate that. And then Treylon Burks from the Tennessee Titans, somebody that hasn't really performed at the level that his draft pick warranted. He was a first-round draft pick out of Arkansas. But, he's had injuries, poor quarterback play, all these different things. He's been a disappointment to this point. And I do think that a big wide receiver would be a nice addition for the Washington Commanders, because you look at the room, and yeah, you just added Luke McCaffrey, who's over 6 foot, but other than him, the only guy that's at 6 foot or higher is Terry McLaurin, who's exactly at 6 foot tall, right? So everybody else is kind of a smaller kind of wide receiver, and all of these guys on the list that I just mentioned, DK, Sutton, and Burks, are all over 6 foot, and they're all over 205 pounds, which is, they're big guys, and that's something that the Commanders could certainly add to this team. So you look at what it would cost to get each of them. I think that Metcalf would be the most expensive other than Aiyuk. I think he would cost 2 second-round picks in a row. So listen, man, Metcalf is a great downfield threat. We know that Jayden Daniels has a great deep ball. So this is something to consider if you want to get somebody like a DK Metcalf, who's still only 26 years old, by the way. So even though he's going to be a little bit more expensive, he could be a cornerstone for your offense moving forward. If you don't want to pay quite that much, Courtland Sutton, who is still a really good player. I think he's more of a true number 2 receiver, though, as opposed to a number 1. He'd probably cost around a 4th-round pick to alleviate the cap situation there in Denver. And then Treylon Burks would be the least expensive here, where as somebody that is a pretty unproven product at this point in his career, I think a conditional 6th-round pick is probably what he'll go for on the trade market. But if I'm talking about getting a wide receiver here, guys, I'm probably not going to get Burks. He is the least expensive option, but he also comes with the least amount of production here, and I just don't really think that going out and getting a guy like Burks is worth it. If you go out and make a splash for a wide receiver, let's make it worth our while here. Let's get a bigger name that's going to be an immediate contributor and somebody we can trust on the field. So coming up next year, the most realistic trade target for the Washington Commanders this offseason. It's not a wide receiver. It's somebody on the trenches. I'll let you know who it is here in just a second. But first, if you're excited about the Jayden Daniels era here in the nation's capital, you can go to chatsports.com/Daniels to get your officially licensed Jayden Daniels Commanders jersey today on the Fanatics website. Just so you guys know, right now they don't have the official number announced for Jayden. So whenever the number comes out, that's when they're going to ship your jersey to you, and it's going to be the official number. So it won't be number 1 unless he chooses number 1 for some reason and takes it from Dotson. But, I think that Jayden Daniels will probably be wearing number 5, just so you guys know. It's not going to be a number 1 jersey unless that's his official number. That's just the way it is right now because the official number has not been announced. You can go to chatsports.com/Daniels to get your official jersey in your closet today. So now the most realistic potential option here for the Washington Commanders, if they want to get help at left tackle, if they want to feel like, Brandon Coleman, maybe he's not ready to be a day 1 starting left tackle, man, Cornelius Lucas, do we really trust him to block the blind side of our brand new rookie quarterback. Maybe they go out and get a guy like Dan Moore Jr. from the Pittsburgh Steelers, who has a lot of experience starting at left tackle in the National Football League. He's still relatively young. He can play both sides of the line, left or right. So, if Brandon Coleman plays well, and Andrew Wiley stinks like he did last year, you can just park Dan Moore Jr. on the right side, and he's probably going to be pretty darn inexpensive as well. We'll get to his trade price here in just a second. But first, Dallas Robinson from Pro Football Network had this to say about this potential trade idea. While the Commanders will give the 67th overall pick Brandon Coleman a chance to start at left tackle, they may want to bring in more depth, especially with a rookie quarterback in Jayden Daniels under center. So this is what I think it would be. It'd be the same kind of situation as the Treylon Burks kind of trade, only the Commanders would be sending the 6th-round pick to the Pittsburgh Steelers instead of the Tennessee Titans. So you have Dan Moore Jr., who's experienced. He can play on either side of the line. And the condition there is that if he doesn't play a certain amount of snaps and he plays the bench, then you just give a 7th-round pick to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you're not giving up all that much here, and I do think that this is something that the Commanders will consider here, especially if more is made available by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And honestly, guys, I wouldn't hate this because you guys know, if you've been watching the show, I'm not the biggest fan, or I've got my worries and I've got my question marks about Brandon Coleman starting day one at left tackle, and I don't think Cornelius Lucas is a true starting left tackle in the league. I think he's a good swing tackle option as a backup, but Brandon Coleman, man, he's somebody that I think has all the tools. He's got long arms. He's somebody that moves well. He's got all the tools to be a franchise left tackle, and that's why the Commanders took him. But you look at his Pro Football Focus grade last season with the TCU Horned Frogs, it was at 57.7. All right, and that's in college football in the Big 12. That's not going to be good enough in the NFL, man. He's going to have to get a lot better just to put up that 57.7 PFF grade in the NFL year one. And even then, that would be one of the worst PFF grades of any left tackle in football. Okay, so he's going to have to get a lot better from 2023 to 2024 if he's going to be a success in the league, especially right away. And getting a guy like Dan Moore who can play either side of the line, you don't have to rush a guy like this into your starting lineup too early. And that's definitely something I think Adam Peters, if Dan Moore Jr. is made available via trade, is going to consider here, and why I think he could be the most realistic trade target for the Commanders this offseason. Now pick a left tackle for me if you could choose one. Which guy is the best at protecting Jayden Daniels in 2024? Type DM for Dan Moore Jr., type BC for Brandon Coleman, or type CL for Cornelius Lucas. Let me know down there in the comment section. Now, before I go, I do have one last trade target here at a position that I still think is a big need, and that's cornerback. We're going to be talking about Saints corner Marshon Lattimore here, somebody that's a press man specialist, somebody that I think is going to be a perfect fit in this defense if he ends up being traded here. And I think Dan Moore, I think that this guy is a Dan Quinn kind of guy, all right? His specialty is press man, okay? So he's going to be somebody that can get up in the face of somebody, bully them, be physical. That's what Dan Quinn likes. Just look at Trayvon Diggs, Stephon Gilmore, Deron Bland. That's what those guys did back in Dallas here, and I think Marshon fits that style of play really well. Emmanuel Forbes, right now I think that with the way it's currently constructed, you're kind of hoping he's going to be your number one corner. I think Marshon steps in day one, and he's that guy for you. The reason why I think he might be on the trade block here is that New Orleans has taken some corners early in the draft these past 2 years. They took Alontae Taylor, and then they took Kool-Aid McKinstry in this year's NFL draft. So it looks like Lattimore could be on his way out, especially because after this year, his contract gets extremely pricey, and I know the Saints don't want to pay that, especially with so many young corners on their roster. You look at the depth chart right now, guys, it's unremarkable. Okay, Michael Davis is a fine number 2 starter, I guess. Benjamin St-Juste has shown some good things, but definitely not enough to really be confident in him. Emmanuel Forbes was just straight up burnt toast last year when he was in the game. Showed some good things towards the end of the season, But man, it's definitely a far cry from a legit number one corner. I do like the Mike Sainristil pick. I think he's going to be an immediate impact in the slot, but you definitely need that presence on the outside to really complete this room, in my opinion. Right now, they're hoping Emmanuel Forbes is going to be that guy. I think if you get Marshon Lattimore, if you go to free agency and get Stephon Gilmore or even a Xavier Howard, I think you get that presence in here right away from week one, and you don't have to worry about it. Now, the cap hit for Marshon Lattimore in 2024, if he's traded to the Commanders, it's not going to be all that much, just $1.21 million. So that is a really good, that's pretty much a steal for the Washington Commanders if they're able to trade him this season. But then the next 2 years on his contract, I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's not like it's a massive contract. I mean, it's a pretty penny, $20 million and then $21. So it's definitely not nothing, but I think a guy like this is still valuable. I think he's a great fit with the Washington Commanders defense. So if they want to get aggressive and go out and get in corner, I think he'd cost a 4th-round pick. I mean, right now, New Orleans, it seems like, is trying to unload him. Now, is a 4th-round pick going to be enough? I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. But that's probably the price I would be willing to pay if I were GM Adam Peters. If another team comes in and outbids me, fine. I'm not going to be giving up anything less, or anything more, I should say, than an early day 3 pick. Now, let me know down there in the comment section, which player, if any, do you want the Washington Commanders to target on the trade market? Do you want Dan Moore Jr. to be the next left tackle to start the 2024 season? Do you want to go get a big-name receiver like a DK Metcalf or a Courtland Sutton? Do you want to get a corner like Marshon Lattimore? Is it somebody I didn't even mention on today's show? Let me know down there in the comment section. Who do you want the Commanders to target this offseason? All right, guys, that'll be it for today's show. Really do appreciate your support. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.